Alexander the Great's story begins long before he ever led an army. He was born in 356 BCE in the Kingdom of Macedon, a rugged land north of Greece, to King Philip II and Queen Olympias. His birth was surrounded by legend. Olympias claimed her son was not just a mortal child but the son of Zeus himself. Whether true or not, Alexander was raised to believe he was destined for greatness. From a young age, he was groomed for leadership. His father, Philip, was a brilliant military strategist who had transformed Macedon from a minor kingdom into a powerful force in Greece. Under Philip's leadership, Macedon became known for its disciplined phalanx formation and superior siege warfare tactics. But Philip wasn't just preparing his army, he was preparing his son. Alexander's education went far beyond the battlefield. Philip hired the philosopher Aristotle as his personal tutor. Under Aristotle's guidance, Alexander studied philosophy, science, politics, and the art of leadership. He learned about the myths of Achilles and Heracles, heroes who shaped his belief in personal glory. But Aristotle also taught him to question the world, to seek knowledge as much as power. This balance of intellect and ambition would shape him forever. Then, everything changed. In 336 BCE, when Alexander was just 20 years old, his father was assassinated during a public celebration. Some whisper it was a conspiracy, perhaps even involving his mother, Olympias, but the truth remains a mystery. What's certain is that the throne of Macedon was now his. It was no easy inheritance. The kingdom was divided, and rebellions broke out almost immediately. But Alexander acted quickly, crushing revolts in Greece and securing his power. He destroyed the city of Thebes as a warning, sparing only temples and the house of the poet Pindar, making it clear he was not to be challenged. But Alexander's ambitions were far greater than ruling Macedon alone. He wasn't content with just the lands of Greece. His father had dreamed of conquering Persia, the most powerful empire in the known world. And now, that dream was his. The young king was about to launch a campaign unlike anything the ancient world had ever seen, one that would take him far beyond the mountains of Macedon and into the heart of the Persian Empire. But could he succeed where so many before him had failed? The answer would change history forever. In 334 BCE, Alexander stood on the edge of the known world, looking across the waters of the Hellespont. Behind him, his homeland of Macedon; ahead, the vast Persian Empire. At just 22 years old, Alexander was ready to take on a challenge that had defeated so many before him. With an army of 35,000, small but highly trained, he crossed the Hellespont, marking the start of one of history's most ambitious military campaigns. Alexander's first test came at the Battle of Granicus. Facing a much larger Persian force, Alexander didn't hesitate. He led the charge across the river, fighting side by side with his men. It was risky, almost reckless, but it worked. The Persian forces were shattered, and Alexander's victory sent a clear message: this young king was no ordinary leader. He was fearless, determined, and unstoppable. But Granicus was just the beginning. In 333 BCE, Alexander faced Darius III, the king of Persia, at the Battle of Issus. Outnumbered and surrounded, Alexander once again defied the odds. He personally led a cavalry charge that broke through the Persian lines, forcing Darius to flee the battlefield. In his haste, Darius left behind his chariot, his treasures, and even his family. Alexander treated Darius's captured mother, wife, and daughters with respect, earning their loyalty. This wasn't just a military victory, it was a psychological blow to the Persian king's authority. As Alexander advanced further into Persian territory, he came to Tyre, a heavily fortified island city. The siege of Tyre would become one of his most famous campaigns. For 7 grueling months, Alexander's forces worked tirelessly, building a causeway across the sea to breach the city's defenses. The determination and ingenuity he showed at Tyre were unmatched. When the city finally fell, it was a brutal victory, an example of Alexander's persistence but also his ruthlessness. With each victory, Alexander pushed deeper into the Persian Empire. In 331 BCE, He faced Darius again at the Battle of Gaugamela, where he delivered the final blow to Persian resistance. Darius fled once more, only to be betrayed and killed by his own men. The once mighty Persian Empire was now Alexander's. To cement his domination, Alexander marched into Persepolis, the jewel of Persia. But this wasn't a celebration. The city was looted and burned, allegedly as revenge for the Persian invasion of Greece over a century earlier. The destruction of Persepolis was a powerful symbol. The old empire was gone, and a new order had arrived. By the time Alexander's army reached the heart of Persia, his reputation was unshakable. He was no longer just a Macedonian king, he was a military genius, a conqueror who had defeated the greatest empire of his time. His victories weren't just battles, they were statements of power and ambition. But with Persia under his control, Alexander's hunger for conquest was far from satisfied. What would he do next? The answer would take him beyond the boundaries of the known world. With the Persian Empire under his control, Alexander's ambition grew even larger. He didn't just want to conquer lands, he wanted to unite them. His vision was to create a global empire, one that blended the best of Greek and Persian cultures into something entirely new. But turning this dream into reality would prove as challenging as any battlefield. Alexander believed that unity wasn't just about armies and borders, it was about people. He married Roxana, a Persian princess, as a symbol of this cultural fusion. He encouraged his soldiers to do the same, arranging mass weddings where Greek men married Persian women. To Alexander, these unions were more than symbolic. They represented his belief that East and West could be one, bound not by force but by shared traditions. To spread Greek culture even further, Alexander founded cities wherever he went, many of them named Alexandria in his honor. The most famous of these, Alexandria in Egypt, became a center of learning, trade, and art. These cities were built in strategic locations, acting as hubs that connected Greek and local cultures. They featured Greek-style architecture, theaters, and marketplaces but also incorporated local traditions, creating a unique blend that would shape the Hellenistic world for centuries. But not everyone shared Alexander's vision. Many Greeks saw his adoption of Persian customs as a betrayal. They were uncomfortable with him dressing in Persian robes, adopting Persian court rituals, and treating former enemies as equals. Even some of his closest generals began to question his loyalty to Greek ideals. For them, Alexander was blurring the line between conqueror and conquered. These tensions simmered beneath the surface, threatening the unity of his empire. Alexander's vision of a global empire was bold, revolutionary even. But it came at a cost. As he tried to bring cultures together, he found himself increasingly isolated, caught between the expectations of his Greek heritage and his dream of something greater. Could a single man truly unite two worlds that had been at odds for centuries? This question would follow Alexander to the end of his life, shaping both his legacy and the cracks that would form in his empire. His ambition was unmatched, but as the pressures mounted, the cost of his dream would begin to take its toll. In 326 BCE, Alexander's ambition drove him farther than any Greek king had ever gone. With Persia conquered and his dream of a global empire in sight, he turned his gaze eastward, to the lands beyond the Indus River. These were territories filled with riches and mysteries, a new frontier that Alexander was determined to bring under his control. Crossing the Indus was no small feat. The river was wide, fast-flowing, and dangerous, but Alexander's army was nothing if not determined. They built boats, constructed bridges, and crossed into what is now modern-day Pakistan. Ahead lay the kingdoms of the Indian subcontinent, ruled by powerful leaders who had never faced an invader like Alexander. The most significant challenge came at the Battle of Hydaspes, where Alexander faced King Porus, a formidable ruler with an army unlike anything the Greeks had seen before. Porus brought war elephants into battle, towering, armored beasts that struck fear into Alexander's soldiers. But Alexander was a master of strategy. He used his cavalry to outmaneuver the elephants, creating confusion in Porus's ranks. After a hard-fought battle, Alexander emerged victorious. But something unexpected happened. Instead of treating Porus as a defeated enemy, Alexander was impressed by his bravery and strength. He allowed Porus to retain his kingdom, even expanding his territory. This act showed Alexander's ability to blend conquest with diplomacy, a key to his success as a leader. However, this victory came at a cost. The long years of campaigning, the harsh conditions, and the constant battles had taken their toll on Alexander's army. For nearly a decade, they had followed him through deserts, mountains, and rivers. Now, facing the prospect of more unknown territories and endless fighting, the soldiers reached their limit. At the banks of the Hyphasis River, now the Bias River, they refused to march any farther. For the first time, Alexander had to relent. His dream of continuing eastward was over. This moment marked a turning point. Even the greatest conqueror in history could not overcome the limits of human endurance. Alexander's men were tired, homesick, and ready to return to the lives they had left behind. Reluctantly, he turned back, leading his army westward. The campaign in India was one of Alexander's most challenging and significant endeavors. It tested his leadership, his strategy, and his vision. But it also revealed the limits of ambition. As he marched back toward Babylon, Alexander's thoughts must have been filled with questions. Could even he achieve everything he dreamed of? Or was the cost of conquest too great, even for the mighty Alexander? In 323 BCE, after years of relentless campaigning, Alexander returned to Babylon, the heart of his empire. Though his conquests had stretched from Greece to the edges of India, his ambition was far from satisfied. He spoke of new campaigns, into Arabia and beyond, picturing an empire with no boundaries, where East and West were united under his rule. But fate had other plans. Just weeks after his return, Alexander fell gravely ill. At first, it seemed like nothing more than exhaustion from years of hardship. But his condition worsened rapidly. Fever consumed him, and despite the efforts of his physicians, he grew weaker by the day. On June 10, 323 BCE, Alexander died, at just 32 years old. His death sparked questions that remain unanswered to this day. Was it natural, brought on by years of stress, battle wounds, and the toll of endless campaigns? Or was it something more sinister? Some accounts suggest poisoning, pointing to tensions among his closest advisors. Others claim a fever, perhaps malaria or typhoid. The truth remains a mystery, lost to history. What is certain is that his death shattered the empire he had built. Alexander had no clear successor. His young son was still an infant, unfit to rule, and his sudden death left a power vacuum. His most trusted generals, known as the Diadochi, were left to fight over his vast territories. The unity Alexander had envisioned collapsed almost immediately, as his empire fragmented into rival kingdoms, Macedonia, Egypt under Ptolemy, and the Seleucid Empire in Persia. Yet even in death, Alexander's influence could not be erased. His campaigns had forever altered the ancient world. Greek language, art, and philosophy spread throughout the lands he conquered, blending with local cultures in what would become known as the Hellenistic era, a time of cultural fusion that shaped history for centuries to come. Alexander's death was not just the end of a man, it was the end of an era. His empire, once united by force and vision, splintered. Yet his legend endured. Was he the world's greatest military genius or a ruler consumed by unchecked ambition? A visionary or a conqueror driven by personal glory? Perhaps both. But one thing is certain, the world would never be the same after Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great's legacy is as vast and complex as the empire he built. Though his life was cut short, the impact of his campaigns reverberated through history, shaping the cultural, military, and political landscape of the ancient world and beyond. One of Alexander's most significant contributions was the spread of Greek culture across the territories he conquered. This era, known as the Hellenistic Age, saw Greek language, art, and philosophy blend with local traditions in Persia, Egypt, and India. Greek cities like Alexandria in Egypt became centers of learning and culture, housing libraries, academies, and thriving marketplaces. The exchange of ideas fostered advancements in science, mathematics, and medicine, creating a legacy of intellectual progress that influenced civilizations for centuries. Alexander's military genius also left an indelible mark. His innovative tactics, such as the use of the Macedonian phalanx, combined with cavalry strikes and rapid maneuvers, are still studied in military academies today. Leaders like Julius Caesar, Napoleon Bonaparte, and even modern strategists have drawn inspiration from Alexander's campaigns. His ability to adapt to different terrains, outthink his enemies, and inspire unwavering loyalty in his troops set a standard for what it meant to be a military leader. But Alexander's legacy is not without controversy. While some view him as a visionary leader who dreamed of uniting East and West in a single, harmonious empire, others see a ruthless conqueror, driven by personal ambition and glory. His campaigns brought destruction to countless cities, and his push for cultural integration sparked resentment among both Greeks and Persians. Was he a hero who sought to create a new world order, or a tyrant who brought chaos in his wake? The truth lies somewhere in between. Alexander was a man of his time, a leader shaped by the values and ambitions of the ancient world. His conquests may have been fueled by a desire for power, but they also brought about cultural exchange and innovation that transformed history. Today, Alexander's story continues to captivate the world. His name is synonymous with greatness, his strategies a benchmark for military excellence, and his vision a reminder of humanity's eternal struggle to balance ambition with unity. Was Alexander truly great? Or was his greatness simply the result of a world shaped by his victories? That debate remains alive, as does his legacy, a mix of brilliance, ambition, and contradictions that still defines him over 2,000 years later. What's undeniable is the mark Alexander left on history. His story is a reminder of the heights humanity can achieve and the complexities that come with power and ambition. His name endures, not just in the cities he built or the battles he fought, but in the way he reshaped the world forever. If you've enjoyed exploring Alexander's story and want to uncover more fascinating figures from history, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Together, we'll go deeper into the lives, achievements, and legacies of the people who shaped our world. History is full of incredible stories, let's discover them, one journey at a time.